Good frosty morning, everyone. I now call the November 18th, 2020 administrative briefing and work session of the Marion County School Board to order at 8:31 a.m. Please silence your electronic devices and remove hats to avoid disturbing others. Board Member Campbell, would you please read our commitment statement?
If we chose one word to describe us, it would be student-centered, because student success is our mission. When we come together to work, we are efficient, effective, and productive. Our three most important characteristics are dedicated, transparent, and individually responsible. To work well together, we must demonstrate respect, confront reality, and be accountable. We will always put students first. We will leave a legacy of success.
Thank you. I now ask the school board attorney to explain the rules for this work session.
This work session is a public meeting as defined in Florida's Sunshine Law. The board is dedicated to full transparency in its meetings and its work. In compliance with the Sunshine Law, the board has adopted uniform meeting procedures, including the right for citizens to participate. The board will allow public comment regarding any work session item listed on today's agenda at the appropriate time. Speakers must fill out a request form and hand it to the school board secretary. After the board and superintendent have completed their discussion on a particular agenda item, the secretary will call speakers' names in the order received. At the podium, speakers are asked to state their full name and address and to spell their last names. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. As required by Sunshine Law, the board must maintain orderly conduct and proper decorum throughout the meeting. Speakers may criticize subject matter and decisions in a respectful manner, but not people. Finally, speakers must be very careful not to violate the privacy rights of others, especially students and their family members, by mentioning their names or other identifying information. Thank you for your attention to these important rules.
Thank you. We will now begin the work session with the superintendent's administrative briefing.
Good morning, Chairman Thrower and members of the board. We have two rather brief updates today to present to you for the work session. The first begins with Ms. Lively, a member of her team, providing some updates on our health plan and the changes that will occur beginning in January, potentially. And then we have follow-up from Mr. Ayers presenting attendance zone options specifically related to Evergreen. And the one thing I did want to mention to you as a board before we have that presentation is these are just options to bring back for your consideration, not trying to intend to do one or the other, but just to provide you some different options and get some guidance from you. So look forward to starting with Ms. Lively.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome, Mrs. Thrower, to the chair position. Welcome, Mrs. Campbell. Welcome, Mr. Powers. It's been a while since I've been here. As you recall, the last time we met was, I believe, June 4th. At that point, the board gave consensus to move forward with self-funding, and we've been working hard since that point to be ready for January 1st. This is our first presentation that I'll be co-presenting with Thomas Buss from Barrett Liner Buss Gallagher to go over where we've left off since June and where we are going heading into January. And Thomas, if you want to go ahead and start.
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Gullett, Mr. Powers, Ms. Marina Lopez. Thanks for the opportunity. My name is Thomas Buss. For those of you who haven't met yet, I'm your local servicing consultant with Barrett Liner and Buss Gallagher. We've been blessed to be a part of your benefits program for over 25 years. Graduate of Marion County Public Schools. So this is near and dear to my heart, and I appreciate the opportunity to work with you all to find solutions towards the health of Marion County schools and its employees. Several of you have heard the background of this, but for those of you that haven't had the full course, I'm going to cover the highlights. If you have any questions at all, please let me know and I can clarify. But what we're attempting to do is change the funding methodology completely for Marion County Public Schools. We've been fully insured for years. Florida Blue is our incumbent carrier. That will remain the same going into 2021. The objective is, how do we reduce Florida Blue's administrative profits? Is there a better way to manage the risk of this district? Is there a better way to identify data, create more creative solutions and programs that will ultimately long-term stabilize your spend, increase presenteeism, reduce absenteeism, all the positives that we try to find, okay? So as we peel back that opportunity, we look at different data sets. The first bullets here that we'll bring to your attention, and this is through September 2020 data from Florida Blue, is we look at what's called a medical loss ratio. That's premium paid into your program that we provide in a check every month to Florida Blue as compared to claims that they pay out on our behalf. So we're currently running over the last 12 months through September at a 77% loss ratio. That's a good spot to be, right? 100% would be a concern. Anything over 100% a big concern. 77% still a very good trend. We always look back a year further. So as we compare that year over year in a rolling 12 months, it remains stable as the prior 12 months had you at approximately 76%. So we feel very comfortable as we look at an opportunity for the school board to take on more risk, which is what self-insurance is. And that's what we're recommending for 2021. Are you in a position financially to where, one, you can, two, it's a good time to do it, how are we trending, and then three, what's the strategy? All right, so the time looks good, still looks good, right? The big question mark was COVID. How's it going to play out? Are we going to see a spike? Are we going to see attrition? Where's it going to land? Key indicators we study, obviously your key drivers year over year. Inpatient is your big one. We know the largest dollar spend is there within the acute care facilities. However, what's interesting is inpatient has actually come down some, which is, I believe, a testament to what we've seen relative to COVID. However, outpatient, physician categories, that would be primary care and specialty, as well as pharmacy, we're seeing a continued increase in the specialty pharmacy spend, which is a key focus as we'll look to self-funding, are your primary drivers of your healthcare plan spend. As for COVID-19, just over 110 claims that have run through the Florida Blue system, right? I know the data is going to vary depending on what source we're looking at. But through September, the COVID-19 confirmed data is approximately $880,000 as impact to Marion County Schools health plans bottom line. Of that 880, about 600,000 came from two claimants that went to the hospital at about $250,000, $300,000 apiece. Okay, ICU, bad case scenario in that case. The rest of it, lower cost testing. Okay, the acuity wasn't there, recovery was maintained, and everybody's back home and doing well, right? So the testing impact, what really resulted is we saw all of our elective surgeries go by the wayside for over 90 days. So you saw a true decrease in claims that we've never seen before. Usually during the summer months, we see a spike. Educators are out of school. They have time to have surgeries and recover. Well, that didn't happen this summer. So that is a dip that is factored into this analysis, and we factored it as an anomaly, not as a normalcy. However, what we have had tremendous success with, and we will maintain even through this transition, is virtual medicine through Teladoc, one of the largest national carriers of virtual medicine. We have seen a tremendous increase in that utilization. People are doing the right thing. They're finding value in that to talk to a board-certified physician, either telephonically or over the video. Just turn on your phone camera and you're talking to a doctor in Georgia, right? It's working very well, very well. Wellness program continues to progress with new protocols. Laurel Lingle is our wellness coordinator at our office. She's continuing to find solutions via WebEx training meetings, and people are on the computer exercising together virtually, so finding ways, right? Wellness program, virtual challenges, educational opportunities, we're still making sure even in this environment we're making that happen. Okay, the next one is an update on the COVID information. I think I covered that pretty well in those numbers, Lori, if you want to go to the next slide. This is the financial analysis that's probably the key, and what's important to us here is we look at the top line. There is descriptions of these categories on the left. Might be easier to look at your packet. But the three column headers, proposed Florida Blue, renewal and Navy Blue, self-funded, second column, projected savings, third column. Okay? As we studied what Florida Blue proposed your fully insured renewal to look like for January 1st, 2021, as compared to what if we did go self-funding, this is the end results from our actuarial team that's come back and said, where do the dollars land, and what are the differences and why? So as you look at your fully insured renewal, I want to remind the board, and for those of you that haven't heard this, Florida Blue came in initially at just around a 7% rate increase for next year on your current platform. Then at the 11th hour, they came back and they said, hey, we'd like to go ahead and buy that 7% down for you and bring it to zero. That $2.217 million you see there in red in parentheses was their effort to reduce that to keep you fully insured for 2021. In my profession, what that's a direct reflection of is they want to keep their profit margin right where it is. Okay? So that was a Hail Mary, for lack of a better definition. So we said, thank you, but we're going to continue to research this opportunity to make sure it's the better fit for the school board. So you parlay that to the middle column, self-funded, and you say, well, Thomas, why are the total claims lower? Almost 3.1 million, over $3.1 million lower. If you look down to the bottom, the key assumptions matrix, the top line is annual medical trend. What is the cost of healthcare doing every year? Is it going up? Is it going down? Well, it's continuing to go up. But there's a lot of variations to what the actuaries believe medical trends increase year over year is. Florida Blues was 9.9%. The actuaries that study national data, statewide data, 7.5%. So the end result, ladies and gentlemen, was self-funded has produced about $3 million less in projected claims if we were to manage to it in that from that directive. And in the second section, retention and fixed costs, you see the savings there on how much less Florida Blue is going to be making, even with all of the additional components, stop-loss insurance that we've talked about. The school district is not assuming the full risk. We're purchasing a $300,000 stop-loss policy, so any dollar spent above that mark will be written off to the stop-loss carrier. Anything under that is the school board's responsibility, so it limits the financial risk. All that added together, you still see the net retention and the fixed cost variation. Furthermore, if you look at the total expense, $48.3 million fully insured, $46.1 million self-funded, it's about a $2.1 million savings to the school district to maintain a self-funded directive. That's an approximate 4.4% savings as compared to the fully insured option. All right? So the other key fact for the board to understand is as you transition to self-funding, the state of Florida will require that any organization have, especially a municipality, reserves. What if the worst of the worst happened? What if something catastrophic happened? Do you have enough money, because now it's our responsibility to pay those claims, not Florida Blue in their entirety, up to that stop-loss level. So the state of Florida says we need to know, OIR stands for Office of Insurance Regulation in Tallahassee. We need to know that you've got about 60 days worth of your claims set aside for your health program. And that equates to just under $7.6 million. What most municipalities and public entities see when they try to make this transition is they've got to point to their general budget to tell the state, yes, we're solvent, we can take on this risk. One of the most beautiful components of this transition is our actuary, upon applying for this self-funded transition to the state responded back and said, we've not seen a public entity in a financial position as well secured as Marion County Public Schools is right now to take this transition on. And here's why. You see the pro-share reserve balance? You all have been such good fiduciaries of this health program over the last number of years that your profit surplus that you have been able to maintain from a fully insured structure has allowed for a nearly $9 million profit sharing balance to be retained by the district. Municipalities don't have that 9 times out of 10. Okay, so a testament to your entire team, to Lori, to Miss Boston Ellis, to you all. It usually goes elsewhere. So compliments to you for maintaining that strategy and thinking long term. The reason that's important is you're already almost $2 million ahead of the game where most public entities are to start your self-funded program. So the remaining balance that we've got to delineate, and we'll find it as the savings continue to occur self-funded, is another $5.7 million. Well, that's not that scary of a number, and here's why. We're closing out a fully insured contract with Florida Blue that says if there's any underwriting profits remaining at the end of 2020, it's a 2-year accounting, you also are deserving of another accounting profit sharing distribution. At this point in time, it is looking like another $1.8 million in addition to the 1.9 on the screen will be forthcoming by the start of the second quarter of 2021 that can be directly applied towards the reserve balance requirements from the state. Tremendous initial position, leaving you in the potential throes of in the first year, you may satisfy the state's reserve requirement. Okay, incredible job. Next slide, please. Okay, so I mentioned the stop-loss agreement, limiting your risk. That's finalized, no change to what you've seen in the past in terms of cost of that agreement. We are in the current final throes of negotiation with Florida Blue under the Administrative Services Agreement. This is the contractual change going from fully insured to self-funded, as Florida Blue will remain our incumbent administrator and paying the claims on behalf of your employees. Being finalized, we expected this. It's Florida Blue's legal and working through that. So Mr. Powers, as you're aware, there's some details that we're working through at this point, but we expect that to be ironed out and worked through, but we need you to know that's an important matter as well. The state actuarial filing, you see that Florida Statute 11208, that's been submitted to the state. That was the trigger where the state came back and said, Marion Schools, you're in a great position. And you have been approved by the state of Florida to proceed with this funding methodology. We just closed out your open enrollment for 2021. There weren't any changes. You all already previously approved that. Same 4 plans, still Florida Blue, PPO networks, no change to the employee contributions. You all did approve the additional 4% funding for next year, which is going to, I believe, get you to that state OIR requirement within the first year, because you're already hedging the bet for next year's trend. Okay. It went well. Everybody was very pleased. We hosted computer lab education meetings at MTC. Everybody in masks and distanced and clicked this button. It was quite an experience, but everybody did great. We had a couple locations said, hey, Thomas, will you come out and meet with our staff? We did that at directive of the school district. Lori's team, spectacular job as always. And we continue to find ways to make sure everybody's educated and well-versed in their benefits, because it's an important and expensive investment for every family. Right? So compliments to risk management, a job well done as we finalize open enrollment for 2021. All right, let's move next.
Thomas, I just
Oh,
want
sure.
to make sure I'm clear to go back on the administrative agreement. We've been working on that for months. We had anticipated that it was going to be complete this week to make it in time for that December 8th board meeting that remains. Late yesterday, we received some changes to that document that we were not expecting from Florida Blue. We don't believe it's in the district's best interest at this time to move forward with that agreement until we iron out all of those details. So I just want to be very transparent that we don't feel confident it will be done in time, but we are working diligently with them every day, and we're going to engage Mr. Powers to help us resolve those issues and move forward. I just wanted to make sure that we did talk about that. Unfortunately, they can be challenging to negotiate with. We are aware of some other public entities that have had the same obstacles, but we are working through those.
For the record, Ms. Lively has brought me up to speed on those changes that were just proposed, and it's unfortunate that after us dealing with everything for so long, we literally got this on the eve of us attempting to make some decisions here. And for all intents and purposes, we believe that we had a good negotiation and contract that was pretty well resolved. And when was it? It was yesterday? Late yesterday. We suddenly got a bunch of amendments that are going to take review. I mean, I've got to go, and many of them are ones that are what we otherwise call an adhesion contract, things that are simply, they want us to simply accept wholesale, and we're going to have to go through and renegotiate some of those things.
Do you anticipate that we will get through these speed bumps that they've put in place for us, and that this will get to the point where we'll continue to be able to move forward as anticipated?
We do. I think it's just going to take some time. We've already made some steps with them. They gave on some things, we gave on some things, but we just can't accept last minute things being added or deleted that we haven't had time to fully vet. It may even give us some additional time to work on the things that we did agree to, that maybe we can, work a little further to have it be more in our favor. It's very complicated to deal with these big organizations and for everybody to be on the same page, but we're confident it will get resolved.
Great.
Yeah, Ms. Thoreau, if I can add to that, and thank you, Mr. Powers. Par for the course with Florida Blue, but we are going to work through it. But it may help our negotiation position as we work through it, as Ms. Lively said. Okay, so recommendation factors. Again, the recommendation to the school district is we remain the course for self-funding transition into 2021. You're fully credible. That means you are large enough. You're approximately a $50 million a year health plan. You can take on the risk of this type of a transition financially independently without Florida Blue charging you as much as they have year over year. Okay, so the time is great, and you can do this. Plan administration control, I mentioned a touch of these earlier. You're going to see a lot more information. I'm most excited about this. Think wellness. If we can identify specifically on your pharmaco spend, what's happening in this segment of pharmacy in need, and under what brand category, and what diagnosis, and what can we do about that more proactively to help the workforce? In addition, what programs can you do on the physical side in coordination with the medical community? A lot of options that, as fully insured in the past, we've not had the opportunity to do. As you look at tailored programs, to that point, future risk avoidance, we're going to know more to plan ahead than we've been able to. So more proactive as you're self-funded than reactive as you're fully insured. So as I mentioned before, in 2021, compliments to the board for taking a conservative and proactive approach in funding your rating for next year at an additional 4%. That's going to help us get to that state requirement all the faster. The main focus, if I may, for the next 20 years, and this may be the forever opportunity for Marion County Schools, is we have to remain conservative in how we fund this program. There are many examples that we've seen through our organization around the state of Florida and in the country that have said, we believe maybe we don't need to fund the program at this level this year. We need to allocate dollars elsewhere. I would offer to the board, and like to go on record as saying the most appropriate approach financially to self-funded program is truly listen to the actuarial data and allow sound decision making in the best interest of your financial future, to not put Marion County Schools in a position where it's upside down. We've underfunded your program. Where now we're going back to a position of having a conversation about a 15-20% rate increase that we've heard of in the past with Florida Blue fully insured. That's what we have to stop. The peaks, and then Florida Blue investing $2 million at the 11th hour. Let's find this. That's our goal. And what we love the most is, as you're profitable, and we believe you will be, all the money stays here. It doesn't go to Florida Blue's profit or pockets for their profit. It stays with the district. Ms. Lively?
Okay, so our last slide is the tentative timeline. As we talked about before, we would come to the board more frequently to communicate with you as the year goes on and we reach certain milestones. This is a projected tentative timeline of the times that we believe that we need to come before you between now and next November. These dates are set up strategically to be able to talk about updates as well as funding projections, in addition to funding strategy, and then ultimately renewal, so that you will be communicated with at each step and always know what is going on and how much we will need ultimately to fund 2022's plan. And in between, we will also meet with the insurance committee to get their feedback and share that information with them and bring that back to you as well. So you can see we've had to change our meeting strategy with you, where we've met less in the past with fully insured. We will be here more often, so you will always be updated. And other than that, unless you have questions at all?
Madam Chair. My only question, and this kind of is actually for the board, while I have seen these presentations over the past year or more, I haven't been a part of the discussion. And my question is, do we as a board, or with Ms. Boston Ellis, have the policy that those pro-share refunds are going directly to the reserve for this specifically, and that we will not be spending those dollars on anything else?
That has been, I do believe, I don't know if it's policy, but that has been what has happened with those funds, knowing that we wanted to, at some point, go self-insured. Is there a policy, a fiscal policy for it? Ms. Lively, I don't know that we have a policy.
And on self-insured, you will actually not be seeing ProShare anymore. That is a component of fully insured. So this is our remaining allotment that Thomas talked about that we expect to get in about May of next year. And we've already committed that. Obviously, I believe everybody here has given consensus that that will go towards the health insurance. So that will not be a scenario coming forward. But we did get the commitment prior to hang on. I think we've hung on to that 1.9 million since 2015, anticipating that this day would come and we'd want to be prepared.
Right, as I understand it, the pro share is the, for lack of a better word, slightly meager amount that the Blue Cross Blue Shield was doling out to us as part of the profit sharing from them, correct?
Very simple math. You're currently receiving 50% of your underwriting surplus in ProShare. Self-funded, you receive 100% of your underwriting surplus because it stays here with the district. Yes, ma'am.
Any other discussion from the board?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all.
Oh, Ms. Boston Ellis. You have some words of wisdom for us? Here comes the
Good
wisdom.
morning. Ms. Campbell, I would like to assure you that we continue to reserve those dollars in fund balance and have been since 2015. Okay?
Thank you. She heard her name from the other room.
Right, came right out. This truly feels like a win for our district, and I'd like to thank Ms. McCall for all her hard work on the committee. It's obviously paying off. I feel like what I heard was we're positioning ourselves to be more proactive than reactive, which I love. We're going to be continuing to follow the actuarial data. Those are the gurus that are really the professionals of this. We're coming up with creative solutions to better protect our employees. I truly think this continues to just prove our commitment to protecting employees, not just through COVID, but all the time, and inviting them into wellness. That's what's going to reduce our costs. That's what I feel like I'm hearing, and I can't thank you enough, Thomas. You just always bring us complex information in a way that makes a lot of sense.
My pleasure.
And thank you, Ms. Lively. You're just such a great steward of these programs. Is there any public comment? All right. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Mr. Ayers, you're up.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Madam Co-Chair, board members, Ms. Campbell, welcome to the board, Dr. Gullett, Mr. Powers, Ms. Elena Martinez-Lopez. I'm here today to come back to you again to talk about Evergreen Elementary School and the facility usage of Evergreen Elementary School and the needs to address the facility regardless of any school grade outcome that we have. Again, the issues that are in front of us is current student attendance at the school and then the potential attendance according to the zone boundaries. As I presented to you before, there's not enough students in the current zone to fill the school. There's 722 seats in the school and there's approximately 380 students in the zone. So we got to look at total school capacity and then the school utilization in regards to the facility. The physical plant of running a school without that many students on it. So last time we wanted to talk about options. So today I'm going to talk about 4 different options for you today. Option 1 is maintain the current status elementary school. That's an option. Option 2 is to place a choice program at Evergreen Elementary School. Option 3 is we close Evergreen, then move district offices to Evergreen, and we have more information on that. And then option 4 is to close Evergreen, but then create a district-run alternative program. And I'll go into these options in more in depth now. With option 1, we would maintain our current status. It's basically everything stays the same. We would continue to monitor surrounding development for potential student population into the zone. Specifically, there's the Pine Oaks Golf Course project, which is currently labeled as West Oak. And working with Mr. Herlihy and the city of Ocala, that's approximately 5 years out from breaking ground due to issues. So that's not an immediate fix to the issue, but those are issues and other future construction due to the Economic Development Council and their work bringing in other portions. So we would have to monitor the surroundings and think that more students would be in the area to fill the school. Again, under that option, operational costs would still be the same. The school will remain underutilized in the terms of a physical plan, in the term of the actual seats. The open seats also negatively impact future school construction. As I presented to you before in the past, Marion County has a surplus of elementary seats, a large surplus, and so we were unable to build new construction for elementary seats in the southern part of the district where we need it, as long as we have these open, underutilized seats. And then the current staffing plan of the school, because you have a full custodial staff, full cafeteria staff, full of everybody, it is not cost effective for that number of students. And then delaying the decision constricts the timeline to implement either option that we do if the school does not achieve the recommended school grade. Does the school, with what we want, achieves a grade, it still presents us with an underutilized facility. And then the options that the school does not achieve are to close or convert to the charter, which we've gone down that road before. So these options are regardless of the academic outcome. We're just looking at the utilization of the physical plant. Option 2 is the choice program. We would develop a choice program to attract out-of-zone students. The issues to look at here is the cost to implement the program and then the type of the program. We would have to do community meetings to get community input on the type of choice program that would get there to be able to facilitate the students in Marion County. And so, again, we've covered it before in the past, just placing a choice program isn't necessarily an answer. It is an option, and we can develop that, but it's still, in the short term, it's still, until we provide transportation to those schools, it still provides a barrier to that. When we look at option 3, which is to actually close Evergreen Elementary School and then move district offices to that building. It's property that the district already owns and the building's already there. Currently there are 219 pre-K to 4th grade students at Evergreen Elementary School. Students will be provided the opportunity to attend a higher performing school. Schools will be determined, the parents would have choices, and then transportation will be provided those students, and monitoring would utilize the Florida Opportunity Scholarship. We did meet with the DOE, Dustin Sims, to go over our plan, and he approved of the plan if this was an option that we could properly do that with these students, because since this is a turnaround school, we have certain regulations that we have to follow for the placement of the students. So these students would be going basically the Florida Opportunity Scholarship to be able to get transportation to a school and then utilizing parent choice. Last time we were asked about the student demographics that are currently attending Evergreen, and this is a breakdown by grade level of the number of students that are attending there and their ethnic background, as well as the economically disadvantaged, DSE, ELL, and then females and males. If we move district offices there, that basically we would redevelop Evergreen into district offices. And these are estimated costs, working with Mr. Knight's department. The estimated cost of $25 million to redevelop Evergreen into district offices, compared to an estimated $30 million to build a new district office on brand new from scratch. Things to consider, the site is limited. I mean, you would be constrained to the existing building, to what you have, and a more in-depth feasibility study would be needed. Both options here are several years out, so if we closed Evergreen immediately, then you would have to start the development and the construction, so we couldn't move in August, per se. It would be a time, but also there's a time constraint on the building a new building. And so as we look at those options, what would happen is the current Evergreen Oak Crest attendance zone would be combined to provide a larger student population to help, again, another school that has a facility that's underutilized onto that. This option impacts less students and families. We did look at other options of shifting boundaries around, but other shifting of multiple boundaries would affect multiple schools, multiple families, multiple districts, and so this would affect the least amount of students going forward. Going forward, option 4 would be to close Evergreen Elementary School and develop a district-run alternative program. Currently, students are transferred to our contracted sites. We have Cermi and New Leaf, which are out there. The current contract is up for renewal and bid. We're going through that process. The cost of the current contract is $4.1 million. So that's what it's cost the district for these contracts. During the evaluation of the two, I'd look to see if there was a savings. We're going to say the cost is going to be neutral because there's lots of unknowns out there of whether this would be a current cost savings to the district or not. So we're going to say it's a cost neutral aspect. Again, the option, the Evergreen students would be moved to a higher performing school, just like in option 3. But more importantly, it provides an opportunity for us to take advantage or take responsibility for our own students, especially our most challenging and needy students that we currently send off to contracted sites. And so the district alternative run would be housed on the Evergreen campus, or alternatively, Oakcrest could move to the Evergreen campus, which is a 30-year newer school with more options and facilities, and then the alternative program developed on the Oakcrest campus. Several options to consider on that is Evergreen is a newer campus, like I said, with more options. I was concerned about the PE programs and different things like that that are a struggle at Oakcrest, that we'd have the music room and things at Evergreen. You would have less walkers at Evergreen, and so more bus riders, which could also help with the attendance.
You have less walkers where? At Evergreen or Oakcrest?
Evergreen. There's less walkers at the Evergreen than there would be at the Oakcrest, because at Oakcrest, there's lots of neighborhoods that surround, so that with the 2-mile zone and the thing, there's more
Okay, you
walkers.
saying there would be less walk, I got,
Okay.
okay, I got you.
That's something we have.
Yeah, that is an issue.
That is an issue
That's an issue.
of the walkers, and so there would be more bus riders on the Evergreen campus.
From the Oakcrest area to Evergreen, got you.
Correct. So we're looking at, again, we presented you with 4 options. And again, this is all based upon the utilization of the physical plant, of the building, and the cost to run that building. And so the 4 options that are applied to you right now, we go through there, and it's the highlights are there. Option 1, again, there's the cost and staff of an underutilized building. A bonus of 1 is there's no student movement. We would not be having to transfer any students. School capacity remains to receive students for future development. But the school also continues to be underutilized, hindering future construction ability. Option 2 is the choice program. The cost is the cost to implement the program at the school. Again, there's no movement of students other than parent choice going in. You do have a potential increase in student enrollment, but it would be based upon the parent choice. And the choice program is not perfect due to parent choice and lack of transportation, because a parent may want to send their kid there, but if they can't get their child there, then it's lack of transportation. With option 3, there is a cost difference, an estimated cost difference over the thing, but I want to be hesitant to say that it would be a cost savings, because Teresa would get mad at me, and also it's unknown, because you rip open a wall, you don't know what you see, so the cost is unknown on that. Students would be transferred to a higher performing school. So they would be utilizing the Florida Opportunity Scholarship Program to be transferred to a higher performing school. Unused student station would be removed from the district inventory, which gets us closer to reducing inventory with the ability to be able to build a new elementary school where needed. And then with district offices, the site is limited and constrained. You basically have what you have, and you'd have to get what you want to fit around what you have. Option 4, which is the district-run alternative program. Again, we're saying this is cost neutral because there's lots of variables that are out there. Students would be transferred to a higher performing school. Unused student stationed, again, removed from the district inventory, which would allow us to have future construction. The big thing here is we're responsible for our own students. Instead of sending them out to a contracted site, we are responsible for our own students. And then one negative is potentially you would move 2 campuses. You would close Evergreen, and then potentially you'd have the option of moving Oakcrest to Evergreen. And then also, I know I've talked to everybody but Ms. Campbell about this, and if you have any other ideas or options, again, what I'm presenting to you in the on the vein of student assignments, we have a underutilized physical plant with underutilized seats, and we have to address the issue as to what the board wants to do with that. And so we're also opening it up to other options that you have that we can look into. But, you know, we've talked about this for a couple of years now.
Thank you, Mr. Ayers.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Since Oakcrest and Evergreen are both turnaround schools, what does that do by combining the 2 schools?
We talked to the state about that, Dustin Sims, and he said that he quite honestly thought it was a great idea because Oakcrest was a newer facility, or Evergreen is a newer facility with more options. It would not impact at all if we just picked up Oakcrest and placed it on the Evergreen campus and combining the zones. It would not affect.
Does that, okay, I know that we had the 2 years with Evergreen with the
Yeah.
external operator. Does Oakcrest still get that one other year with the external?
Yes. It would not affect the extra year for Oakcrest.
So then, so technically, we would only have one external operator versus two.
Technically. And my
Instead of paying for it at 2 schools.
well,
But we're only gonna
just to be
have
clear,
one
I think
anyway.
we don't have an
Yeah,
option.
yeah.
Evergreen is not an option for an external operator going forward.
Right.
But what will happen if Oakcrest moves there and then they didn't meet, you know, this?
They didn't get the C
school,
grade.
What would happen then? Like, look.
We would be in the same situation that we would be if Oakcrest didn't move there. We would have to look at either closing the school or going to a charter option. And that exists whether we move there or not.
Correct, right. But that's what I'm trying to look ahead.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
You know, we move these students here and then a year from now, we're looking at the same issue with that, you know, with the same students in the
Right.
same area is what I'm thinking.
And so I come to you today seeking guidance and thoughts. And I know, Ms. Campbell, this is not relatively new to you. You've seen the presentations on the board. So if you have any questions about what we want, we would need to go forward, especially if for the closing, because there are things that have to happen about community meetings and rezoning, things like that. And so.
When I look at this, I'm kind of leaning toward options 2 or 4. When I look at everything, what concerns me with 4 is we may be in the same situation in 2 years. We're not really problem solving anything. I like the choice program because we know, like with, you know, Madison or NH Jones or stuff like that, if there is a good program, parents will bring their children usually there. You know, for example, like a couple years ago, there was even the gifted program was there, and they went there. So just glancing at this and not having probably time to really marinate and think on this, I'm leaning toward option 2 with the choice program, just to give our community that area some options too, you know, those students.
Madam Chair, members of the board, and I want to say as you're discussing this, a decision does obviously not have to be made, but if you would like to provide some guidance to us, we look forward to that for what you'd like us to further explore and bring back in more detail.
Do we have some, I know we had some issues with district staff that was over at Howard Academy. Are they at Evergreen now, temporarily? Did we move some of those folk over there?
Facilities. So we do have some temporary facility movement, and Mr. Leopard can address where they are right now.
Good morning, Board. We have successfully temporarily located them at various spots throughout the district. We had a couple of locations over near Hillcrest. We have some that are located there at Evergreen just temporarily.
Okay.
So there are some, but it's temporary until we get the repairs.
Okay.
Other thoughts?
Well, we are going to have to do something about district offices. This building, I mean, we have water intrusion. It is not an efficient, effective district office setting. We have people all over the county. So we continue to kick that can down the road, and I know that COVID has played a role in that. But we're going to have some serious discussions about what we're going to do with property that we can actually sell or trade or whatever. So I'm not sure that the Evergreen site is the site for that, but we just cannot continue to kick this can down the road. The thing that concerns me about a choice program, if you build it, they will not necessarily come. Dr. N.H. Jones and Madison Street were incredibly successful, but we have magnet programs at other schools that have not been successful. So if we choose to do this, it has to be a program that we market and a program that our parents and students want. Just to put a magnet, to call it a magnet, does not mean people will come. We've done that. We have a magnet at Oakcrest. I believe we have a magnet out at Marion Oaks.
At Sunrise Elementary School
Reddick?
and Reddick Collier Elementary School.
So if we do it, we have to do it right.
What type of magnet?
I have
Did you-
no idea.
What about something that dealt with the arts? I know, Madison is what? Madison is
Madison is the
Is
Arts
art-
Academy.
this academy.
There's history. I mean, so that, I guess, okay, so I'll speak up. I will echo what Ms. McCall is saying about the district offices. Having sat in these meetings for more than a year, we are kicking a can down a road and we have to get serious about that conversation. Additionally, with the choice program, Dr. N.H. Jones and Madison Street have history, long-standing traditions, and these newer magnet programs are having difficulty recruiting students to their programs. So I would agree with both of those sentiments. I looked at this presentation last evening, so I've been thinking about it a little while. I actually am interested in option 4. Anytime we can eliminate some of those walkers, the 2-mile transportation issue has been a resounding comment that I've kind of had in the back of my mind after meeting with various principals at various schools. And so that has been a challenge, obviously attendance being such a strong focus. So I am interested in the possibility of actually combining these two schools with low populations in both of them to a newer school with newer opportunities and a larger space for them all. I'm not certain that I would then say I would lean towards moving our alternative programs to Oakcrest. I'm not sure what that means we would do with the Oakcrest campus, but I'm personally leaning towards option 4 to pursue.
I think, Mr. Ayers, I talked to you or someone else about what it looks like to put together 2 underperforming schools. If both of those schools are underperforming, we're just creating one big.
But remember, we would not be combining 2 underperforming schools. The existing students, the 219 existing students at Evergreen, would be going to higher performing schools. So they would not be combined with Oakcrest. They would.
So those students are going somewhere else.
Those students would go to a higher performing with highly effective teachers, and we would monitor. So just because we would move them out of Evergreen wouldn't stop the requirement that we would have to monitor and provide assistance. And so those students would be transferred to a higher performing school. They would continue to be monitored for 3 years, and they would have to be placed with highly effective teachers and going forward. And so we wouldn't necessarily be combining 2 underperforming schools into one.
Because of Evergreen's situation, that is probably going to be, I mean, it's either going to be closed or go to a charter. I don't know that we're going to have much choice.
Well, if Evergreen makes the grade, though, then those kids can remain.
Right. Yeah. And if we did combine the schools, you know,
Only if they don't. Right, right. I'm really glad that you, at the end, have all 4 options on one piece of paper, because each option has its own list, laundry list, really, of pros and cons. I think it's going to be really important, starting as soon as possible, to start a conversation in the community as well. They need to know what we're thinking about and have an opportunity to weigh in, because everything that we've talked about really is contingent on community support. If we're going to have a magnet school there or a program, we want to frankly know ahead of time if it's going to be supported, you know, and what type of program the community wants and what we think would do well there. One thing I think we're really missing in this district right now is a PACE-type center for boys. You know, PACE Center for Girls has got a great reputation. They just do a wonderful job with our young ladies. I feel like we're really lacking a complementary program for our young male students. So I would like to throw that into the mix as well for us to consider. I like the idea of kids not having to walk to school at Oakcrest, because having been part of the attendance response committee meeting, those are our kids that struggle the most getting to school, and it's totally understandable. It's a high crime area. We're trying to do lots of innovative and creative things. We've made some progress, but it's still a struggle because of the neighborhood. District offices, it's hard for me to feel comfortable having district offices at Evergreen. Evergreen is a school, and it has the facilities that Oakcrest doesn't. I mean, Oakcrest was slated to get a gym years ago. There's Robert Knight back there, and we've talked about this. And they don't have one. And so it just seems weird to me to have a district office where a big playground is and field and all of those covered areas. That it's a great physical space for children. So those are some of the things that I'm thinking about. It's disheartening to know that the housing development is 5 years down the road, but in a way I'm not surprised because that old charcoal plant and everything there, you can't tell me they don't have a lot of underlying environmental issues. So I guess, but in terms of strategic planning, we do need to keep that in our rearview mirror. So this is opening the conversation. You've given me a lot to think about. I'm not ready to commit to, there isn't really one that jumps out at me right at the moment. However, I would like to emphasize that as soon as we can start bringing the community into the conversation as to what we're thinking about and begin to get their input, that's only going to help us going forward.
I got a question. You said in the current attendance zone for Evergreen is how many students?
I don't have that number real, but it's approximately 370 students.
And those students attend other schools, right?
Yes, there's 200 and some that attend Evergreen themselves, but the rest of them go out either choice programs or for a variety of reasons, controlled open enrollment for other places.
And then how many kids are at Oakcrest?
400. Right under 500.
You know what would be interesting would be to survey those parents of the kids that are going other places
to see.
and say, if Evergreen were to make the grade, how likely are you to return to Evergreen? I wonder why those students are not attending Evergreen. From the input I've gotten from families, it's because it's been a low-performing school. Well, if it becomes a high-performing school and there's actually going to be some stability, then we may have solved our own problem.
And I'd like to also know how many of those kids that are in that area that are going to other schools or going to magnet schools that are in magnet programs. The majority of them are magnet programs.
The largest portion of them are going to either Jones or Madison Street or professional courtesy somewhere else.
See, that says a lot to me, that if there was a magnet program in the area that was comparable to those other two, that they possibly would be in that area. So,
But the challenge still exists that if we have 370 students in the zone and a school that will hold 722 students, even adding a magnet program, you're talking maybe 50 more students the first year, maybe. So we still have 200 plus seats that are underutilized, and that's just not cost effective.
And I think that if we are going to look at that, we need to go to this community and survey this community and say,
Indeed.
do you want another magnet program? I mean, and would you bring your child, and what magnet program should it be?
right,
Because we have underutilized magnet programs now.
right.
And I like the idea of the kids going to a newer school. I would consider putting our alternative programs within our schools, as long as,
One option to think about is if we did move Oakcrest to the Evergreen campus. You know, currently there is the IB program there, but we could put another choice, you know, just because we would do that would not preclude us from having another program or some form of to attract the students there.
And years ago, the IB program at Oakcrest was thriving. It was an A school. I think they were overly enrolled. I mean, they really, so there is a little bit of history there in the sense that, you know, it's been there before. And so, yeah, so, you know, maybe that would be a specific option to offer out to the community and just call it Evercrest.
Can we do a survey, community survey
We can.
Fast.
We can.
Because I think we need to start moving.
The fastest way would be to put a survey out on the website, and that way we could do alert nows or calls to have parents, go out onto the website. Though we could do mailings, but of course there's a cost involved with the mailings.
So what are we asking on the survey?
We need to find out from the community, what do they want in that area? What type of school do they want in that?
We've got 4 options right now we're
Because, yeah.
discussing.
So,
and-
I'm sorry, are we asking them, do they want a magnet program? And what kind of magnet? Or are we asking them, would you be comfortable with moving to, just so we're encompassing everything we possibly can in the survey? Or do we want to be very targeted? We're going to do one of these options and this is what we want to know from you.
Well, I think we've got 2 things going on. I think we need to contact the Evergreen parents that are not at Evergreen. That's a whole different piece. And then I think community-wide, and I think we need to get the CEP, we need to get a lot of people involved to see if we put a magnet school at Evergreen, what should it look like, and will the community support it? I mean, those are the questions. What do you want? Would you support a magnet school, and what type of magnet should it be?
And again, we use the term magnet, that's an old term. It would be more of a choice program, because it's parent choice. And, we have a good program that's going to attract other students. And so
But the word magnet in this community
Means
Resonates.
means something.
Yeah, you're right.
So, Madam Chair, members of the board, if I may clarify, I too was wondering about, I hear that the request is that we would survey the Evergreen families who are not currently attending Evergreen, a separate survey and input community-wide as regarding a magnet or choice program. Would you like these other options included, or are we specifically looking at choice? What type of input additionally are we looking for?
I think we need to be concise because, this is the language that we speak. But I'm thinking about you, Board Member Cummings, that when you're presenting things to the community, we just have to be careful about not overusing jargon. We need to be very
It needs to
specific
be very
and
specific,
targeted.
very concise. We also need to talk to the Oakcrest parents specifically about moving their children
To
to
Evergreen.
Evergreen campus. So you have 3 different things going on,
lot of
3 different
communication
target
that's
audiences with totally different communication.
And especially the kids, the families that are within that 2-mile walk zone, how would that positively impact them to know that their kids would then be able to ride the bus?
What is the physical distance between Oakcrest and Evergreen now,
Not
mileage
even
wise?
miles.
Not even,
Is it?
it's not even 2 miles.
not
Not
even 2
even-
miles.
Yeah, they're very
So then
close.
would they actually get bus transportation? 'Cause
Yes.
They would be outside.
They would cross.
Because they have to cross roads.
Cross the major road.
Okay.
So they would,
Just
they
checking.
would,
Exactly.
That 2 miles is a
That'd be
big
bummer.
difference.
no, but it's crossing that major road.
Okay.
So I guess, I've heard a lot, and to try to encompass, we have several different things that are out there on the table right now. And then we have several options of how we can gather that information.
It starts with engaging the community.
Right. And so do we want to have, community meetings at the schools? Do we want to put something out on the website that, I think if we're wanting to encompass more of a district-wide, the website is the most easiest, it's the most consistent way that we can get it, as opposed to trying to do mailings or send out flyers or do alert now calls and things like
I
that.
don't think mailings work all that well. I do know that when, pre-COVID anyway, when parents came for the traditional and cherished programs and parties and festivals, then we had hard copies of the choices. Remember, Ms. Kynard? I think something like that from the school level, for the teachers that know the families and the principals and so on. I think paper is also a good way to go with both of these.
And
Not the
all
only
we're
way, but
doing-
one way.
There's no decisions being made.
Right.
All we're doing is gathering information.
Correct.
May I just make a quick point? As we communicate, to remind the families that this is only if Evergreen makes the C grade or higher. If they don't make the C grade or higher, then we only have two options, that is to close the school or to turn it into a charter school.
Yeah, we have to communicate that.
Yeah, because we're struggling, there's so many options, so imagine what, people,
That has to be one of the primary messages, because if not, it's going to come back like before and say that this is all happening, we didn't know anything about it. So we have to communicate that as well. But I also know that in the past, with some of the communications to some of the parents at Evergreen, they actually had to go to some of those housing complexes over there to get the actual input that they needed for their surveys, and that required going to that Deer Run, and I can't remember the name of those other places, but may have to have a conversation with Oakcrest administration to figure out how to actually reach those folk to get right.
So for a point of information, if we wind up in that option that we have to either close or create a charter, can we close Evergreen and move all of the Oakcrest kids to the Evergreen campus?
DOE would allow us to do that
Okay.
without any, because it would just basically, Oakcrest would still be the same
It would just
thing.
be on a different
It would just be on a
site.
site.
However, we won't know that information until June, until we get the school grade.
Right,
Correct.
right.
But
Timeline.
Board Member Campbell, for clarification, that's because there's a fish number associated
Right.
and an identity with that school, and that would not change. So for clarification for the public and for you,
So it would still technically be Oakcrest,
that's correct.
just Oakcrest moved to a new location.
New address.
That's correct. New facility, correct.
thinking a little more about alternative programs. I see the exceptional student education folks back there. I'd love to get your input on how you feel this choice may impact our kids.
I think it would be a great way for us to own our most challenging students, and it would have a big impact on our grad rate, our dropout rate, our ability to control the restraints that they do there, and Baker Acts and teacher certifications, things like that.
Question, if that was the case and we get, these are our kids, they're still our kids whether they're at Surmy or New Leaf. Right now, when our kids mess up and our kids mess up, the option is to send them to Surmy or to New Leaf. If they're back with us and this is our alternative, what happens when they mess up there?
So they don't, that's their most restrictive placement. They don't go back to their school. When they mess up there, same thing happens to them when they mess up at New Leaf. They could either get,
You stay.
Yeah, they stay.
They just stay.
I mean, it would be.
You didn't earn your points.
You know, they're at their base school, they get into trouble, they're moved to the alternative school. It's just that we are now the alternative
they
school.
stay until they earn their way out.
So there's a potential for us because
The amount of days that they have to.
there's potential, I saw that there's a renewal for alternative of $4.1 million that we would recover or not have to pay out. Am I hearing that? Mr. McAteer?
Mr. McAteer is prepared to talk about that.
Yes, sir. The current cost for our alternative programs for our contract is $3.3 million plus about $3.35 million plus about $750,000 in ESC transportation. So it comes to $4.1 million that that runs through the Marion County Public Schools for those programs.
New Leaf handles kids that are, what, elementary, kindergarten up to a certain grade?
Second grade
And-
to,
and-
well, they have regular ed students, general ed students, second grade to 6, and they have students with IEP, students with disabilities, grades 7 through 12.
And Surmy has what?
Surmy has general ed students, grades 7 through 12.
So this would be a combination of New Leaf and Surmy into one
Yes.
site?
Yes, sir. Be putting it on the same facility.
Different, you could
Different,
separate it.
yeah.
One of the things that I think is important to think about with that is we are currently having a speech language pathologist that are going to Surmy. We have speech language pathologists going to New Leaf. If they were all in one location, we could use our resources in a better way. Ultimately, these students and their graduation, their scores, they reflect back on Marion County Public Schools. At this moment, we don't have any control over how it's actually delivered, the educational delivered, how the consequences for behavior, we don't have control over that at this point. So that would be another positive of us having control of our own alternative program.
How many kids is at Sermi and New Leaf? And could the Oak Crest campus accommodate that many kids?
Yes, the most we get between those two campuses usually is a little bit over 400. I wrote down my notes here to make sure I have it. On day 40, I believe we had 140 at Sermi and 60 at New Leaf. So October 19th, we had exactly 200 students that were enrolled in those two campuses, which is down from a year ago where we had about, I think it was 333 or 334. So we usually, just like our other enrollments, we peak in October, but this is a little different in the fact that we still do alt-place students and students take expulsions with services, so we may get up to around 400, 380 to 400 between the two in December when students are recommended for return. They've served their sentence, so to speak. They come back to the schools and we go down a little bit in January, and then we kind of peak again in March, and usually after that there's not a lot of folks that go there.
Right.
So would we be able to, if we had the space, which Oak Crest we would we be able to bring in some career technical, almost like a wheel for these students to maybe, as they're spending their time at Sermi, maybe looking at some different career options and trying some different career options that might help them stay out of trouble?
Well, Ms. McCall, in my mind, we would have to. That would be the main reason to do it ourselves would be, there's a lot of different factors, and cost obviously plays into it, but academic continuity is one of the biggest things. And academic continuity includes CTE, it includes the 3 E's, it includes the career. So certainly, would we be able to do it as widespread as at a current high school? Probably not. We would have to be very targeted.
Well, and you give them a wheel. I see it as some different choices that they spend, a 2 or 3 week period at these different choices to see if something sparks them.
So they take a circuit.
Interest. Yeah.
They get a chance to get a
Call
taste
it a
of all
wheel.
of them
Yeah.
and see,
It's a wheel.
and taste
It's a
everything,
career
and
wheel.
then
Yeah.
The board.
And that's some of the opportunity that we would have if we were able to, if it was a district-run school that we can't do really with contracted schools based on some of their things. We do some of the things. DeJuan Thomas does a great job at DJJ with the construction program from some of our students that are there for by court order. And I look at it as a bigger, kind of like a wheel, but a bigger piece of that. Again, I would be remiss if I stood here and promised you it would look like Westport High School's CTE programs, Forest High School's
No,
programs.
we don't expect that.
Board Member McCall, I would actually consider that a priority because I think there's a potential there that if we manage this ourselves, that we need to ensure that we're engaging these students and preparing them for their future. And I think that we'll find that if we can engage them in something of high interest to them, that will put them on that career path, college path, then that's a priority for that.
Might be absolutely a great use.
I'm leaning towards
yes,
That may be the best thing that
Yes,
we can do.
and we have not yet tapped that potential here in our district.
And as I was mentioning that I was leaning towards option 4, but I wasn't quite sure it was alternative programs, the reason for that is because I was thinking CTE. I was thinking, are there MTI programs that we could move there instead? But hearing this vision potentially is a great option.
The most important thing is to make sure that we align what we're doing as a system. So that we can have great programs at a district-run alternative school, but when that student goes back to their base school, obviously MTI electives would be certainly an alternative they could use, but we would also want them to have programs that they could go back to their base school and be successful in. So that's something
Exactly. I think.
And also MTC, because a lot of our kids that are in these programs are much older than they're supposed to be. They're credit deficient, and they've pretty much given up. So they have to have an innovative and creative program. It's the only way to reach them. And speaking about educating the community, I would encourage all of us as board members to pay a visit to New Leaf, take a little tour, same thing with Sermi, so you can begin to draw your own conclusions about how this program could help our kids.
when I initially saw this presentation, my initial was 4 because of the combination of the two schools and us the cost savings for the alternative with the renewal. I think we need to explore that a little bit more as well. I love the idea of the wheel, because that gives these kids, you keep talking about these 3 E's, and if they never have that exposure to the 3 E's at Sermi or New Leaf, they can get it at our school, because they'll be our students again. So I'm leaning toward a 4. I'll tell you that.
We can add a 4th E,
Yeah.
exposure.
Yeah, because they need the exposure. Actually, some of these kids need the exposure because they haven't had the exposure to all these different types of programs that you're talking about. So I'm just one person, but I'm leaning towards 4.
I mean, I'm now leaning a lot towards 4, but I also think that if we're going to move those kids from Oakcrest to Evergreen, it's still going to be under capacity. Am I correct?
Yes.
It will be, but now the zone would be combined. So you'd have Evergreen zone, so there are enough kids in the combined zone to fill a school.
So would we still do the community survey to find out if we can get those?
I think it's, to be transparent, I think we have to, because we have to recognize, and specifically the Oakcrest parents and families, to know that this is potential to gather some input. To do that, we can very easily reach out to the Evergreen parents that are not currently attending Evergreen, if you still want to explore that option, because it's a smaller number and it's more easily reached on that aspect. I think it's important to have the community, to find out what the community does, but there's also a lot of things that sometimes they don't get, and what we just had the presentation here was very informative, that a lot of community people may not understand the whole impact of what we're doing. And so, but we could have, I think it's important to do that, so we could still have community I could work with. I mean, we have a great social work network with the families at Oakcrest already, and then I could join with them just to go out and survey the parents to find out, what would you think if this was an option to you? Would this go from that? And I would work with the team to develop what those questions would look like, and we could definitely do that.
Question from a historical perspective. Y'all just told me that there was at one point an IB program at Oakcrest.
There currently still is.
So let me ask a question. Are these that you have, if Oakcrest has one, Howard has an IB program, Vanguard has an, they're supposed to be connected.
Yeah, they were feeder programs.
So did they lose the connection somewhere? Because I think that would be the draw if you made sure that those students, if you move Oakcrest to Evergreen and made sure that if your kid goes to the IB program at Evergreen Oakcrest and then they go to Howard and they matriculate to.
Howard's feeder is N.H. Jones. It is not an IB program. Howard's feeder is N.H. Jones.
But the students at Oakcrest are zoned for Howard.
And when the IB program left essentially Oakcrest, I would bet you that those parents then tried to get their kids into Jones and were likely successful.
It's going to be how you promote and push this thing.
Yeah.
Well, not only that,
Just so that we correct, the IB program is still in existence at Oakcrest.
Right, and they're
Still is,
rejuvenating it.
and that's why we have more students. We've increased the population of Oakcrest in the last couple of years because of a better focus on the IB program with the kindergarten, first and the early learning stages, and we're promoting it up through the grades. So we are increasing the population of Oakcrest slowly but surely because of that.
Right.
And we need to be promoting that IB program at Oakcrest, and that would, I think, help with the attendance, getting people there.
Yeah, not only promote it, but make sure it's well done.
Right.
Because
Right.
I think along the line, it wasn't ran properly like it should have been. And, as a parent, you see that and recognize that. So naturally, you're not going to put your student in a program that is not effective and working.
Ms. Bayless
So
has
we
made a
need to
commitment.
make sure that-
It is a strong, we're getting much better.
Good.
at that.
All right, so I feel like what I'm hearing is that there's a lot of interest in option 4, combining the alternative programs. Again, I hope that if any board member has not been to visit New Leaf and Sermi, that you will go. I feel like what I'm hearing is definitely getting the community involved. We do want to know where the Evergreen parents are that are not sending their kids there. It's going to be critical to really get the feedback and input that we need for our social workers and our school-based folks to reach out to the families.
So just to circle back, I want to make sure that my marching orders are correct and we know.
Clear as mud.
Clear as thing. So we're going to reach out to 2 groups of individuals. We're going to reach out to the students that are currently in the Evergreen zone but not attending Evergreen to inquire, would they come back if there was a quality program at Evergreen? And then B, current parents at Oakcrest to come up with the idea of what would they think about moving the Oakcrest campus to the Evergreen campus. Maintain identity, maintain everything else, but just move to a new house.
Right, right, like we'll still have trunk or treat.
Yeah, we'd still have all that stuff, but they're there.
And it's newer, and it has a playground, and it has a
Right.
gym, and all of.
Right, well, it doesn't have a.
Correction, I just want to say, it does not have a gym. It has a
Covered area.
covered PE space, an elementary gym.
And the other part
need a
of
gym.
that is to begin to look at, if we take the alternative ed program in-house, what does that look like?
That's on, yeah.
And there may be a proposal to dust off. I do remember years ago that we had this conversation about
We've gone back to
folding.
those things, and the key problem with those was the facility.
Right.
That was the stopping point all along.
Now we have a
the
potential facility. So,
Yeah. And also, when we're looking at it, can we include Ms. Teresa?
Oh, yes,
in that
she-
conversation to know.
Ms. Boston Ellis is always included in all conversations.
Because I see cost neutral, but I'm
Yeah, and
curious to when I see that, I'm like,
Yeah, it's not really
that's-
cost.
I didn't want to.
yeah, I'm like, I'm not sure.
kids cost money.
Well, I was going to say, it's more important, the focus on 4 is we're taking responsibility for our own students. And so,
Yeah.
And
Does that mean we get
enhancing
more
their
money back
opportunities.
in per student funding? Do we get?
no, sir, the way it is now, the way it exists now is we maintain all FTE that's generated by those students. And they go to we contract, so they get a flat rate, whether they have 1 kid or whether they have 400 kids. And so,
Okay.
But I also remind this board, we have got to look at district offices.
Indeed.
I'm just,
Yeah.
this building eventually,
We'll follow down.
it's gonna, the water intrusion behind that wall where all of the technical equipment is,
Right.
when you come in here and the air conditioner's off, this is a sick room. We cannot kick that.
Well, and hopefully by taking care of our kids first, then it will open avenues for the district offices and everything. We've got to get our kids settled and our parents on board with these steps. And then hopefully then it'll make it easier for us to make a decision about where everyone else is going to go, because it's not efficient to have folks scattered all over the county unless they're associated with the schools that are in their area. That's a different story. But so yeah, that's like it's 2 separate conversations, but they're both related
And they need to be done at the same time. We got it.
concurrently if we
We got to do
can.
it concurrently.
when do you want me to come back to
Soon.
present the feedback of that information?
Probably after the holidays.
First
Yeah,
of the year.
right after the
We
holidays.
have a work session on January 7th. Is it 7th? Right, the 7th, which I think, in an abundance of caution, we'd already put on the calendar before that something about the Evergreen attendance zone things. So I think we already have something there, so Elaine, I'd have to.
I think as soon as possible, because again, we need to be communicating with those parents.
So what I'll do is I'll bring back, I'm going to communicate with the current Evergreen parents that aren't attending Evergreen, as well as the current Oakcrest parents, and gather that feedback, and then present that feedback on the 7th. Plus, we'll have a more in-depth feasibility about the alternative program on Oakcrest's campus.
Right, and how that will benefit those students.
Yes.
And let me ask another question. If Evergreen does not get the grade, we know these kids get to go somewhere else. Is there going to be a special choice program for them, or period, time frame? Because choice starts when, next month?
The school choice program starts with, the application starts November 30th and closes on January 31st. And then we run the choice lottery system approximately by Valentine's Day is our goal.
If we're not going to know, if these kids aren't going to know till the end of the school year, we're
Right.
going to have to leave some slots
Right.
open for
That's
these
exactly
evergreen
right.
students.
That's exactly right. That's my concern. we got to, and we have to start communicating that with them, those families that are evergreen parents right now, so that they don't get caught behind the 8 ball and saying, now I just got to push my kids somewhere that I really don't want them to go. So we got a lot of conversation that we got to start having right now with these parents.
Now,
And that puts you in a funny.
it does, but it's doable.
Yeah.
I mean, it puts us in a slot because these are kids. And these are, again, when we talk about the kids going to Oak Crest, the Evergreen kids, these are neediest kids that we
Right.
need to take care of. And so we could have a mechanism to where we could do that. Per se, we'd have to be very, very, very careful with the, because there's the difference between, equality and equity. We need to make sure that we're balancing on the same terminology on both.
So, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Board Member Cummings, just to reiterate that, yes, the Evergreen students, we value them, we value the community, so we wanted to we will communicate with them. We wanted to have this work session first, to have some guidance and have some of the moving pieces cleaned up, but we will communicate with them and make sure that we're keeping them apprised of possibilities. The next step, it was good timing to have this information with the guidance of the board. That's why we wanted to do this now, and then to provide them all the information they would need.
My concern is that, like Ms. Call said, we have to kind of leave some slots open somewhere, because I don't want those parents to not go through the choice period, and then
And we could-
they don't get the grade, and then they say, well, y'all
Also
just.
understand that with the choice programs, transportation is not
Transportation.
provided.
Right.
What I was
So we
gonna
could
say.
leave the slot open, but if the parent can't get there, because we have slots open at our Oak Crest programs currently today. We have slots open at Reddick Collier. We currently have slots open at Sunrise, all our programs. So we have slots open. We don't have slots open at
NH
Jones or Madison Street. We could, set some priority in our lottery, priority by zip code kind of thing. We can do that. But again, it's the transportation issue. Just because you get a slot doesn't mean that you will attend. And we have that, and we face that district-wide with our choice programs. People get their appointment, they're excited, but then we start having the conversations about, well, now I can't get there, so now they're having to give up their slot because the transportation just doesn't work out for them.
And as long as Oak Crest has a more robust IB program and things like that, and potentially even add an additional magnet to this potential, then that could be the choice that some of these parents would want to make, because
In order
they
for
would.
that to happen, Oak Crest would need to make a C. Because
Okay.
if they don't make a C, then that's not even a choice that the
Okay.
parents could make.
They have to
Okay.
go to a highly effective.
All right, and that's not-
school
okay.
with highly.
We trust you to work your magic, and it's also going to be important for the community to understand that this is going to come down to the wire, and that's not our fault.
Correct.
All of this is having well-made and well-thought-out plans ready to activate in June.
We can do a lot of things behind the scenes,
Yeah.
but just to give you some on where my role is, anytime we change zones, there is a process and a procedure that can't just say, okay, let's do it, and then tomorrow it happens. So that's why we wanted to start now, to try to get
Correct.
some, so we can wait until January, at the work session in January, but if we made a decision in January of what we wanted to do, then we would hold public hearing and all that kind of stuff together, just so that you know that there is a process. It's not just, well, let's decide to do it and we do it.
Right.
There's lots of behind the scenes and legality stuff that has to happen to change all that.
And it does feel to the community like things happen at the last minute. And again, it's not our timeline. We are at the mercy of the transformation school policies from Tallahassee. But we want to be ready, and we want the community to at least know, these are the options. And when it gets to a point where we know what we can do,
And just to say again,
be ready.
the underutilization of the physical plant will exist, whether it's a C or not. And so that still has to be addressed.
Okay, all right.
So we'll see you back on the 7th.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Ayers.
Yes. Is there any public comment? All right, seeing none, thank you. Okay. Board concerns.
Lena?
Lena?
The only thing I have is I did forward board members an email from FSBA. They are doing the free ethics training. I know most of you have already done it, so I just wanted to put it out there in case you haven't. Go ahead and take advantage.
It's required.
Yeah, so I have forwarded that to you.
I've done it.
Right.
Okay,
I'm not probably the only one that did do it.
that's all I have.
We ran out of time.
It's 3 hours.
Yeah, it's 3 hours.
It's 4 hours.
Yeah, it's 4 hours.
long.
But it goes fast.
I got time next week.
All right, Attorney Powers?
I don't have any concerns particularly from legal. I think everything's going particularly well. I think that we've gotten quite a bit together with our contract situations, and those contracts are being reviewed, and I think we're getting improved turnaround time, and we're getting positive feedback. I've met with a number of department heads, and so far we're consistent, and I think always on the improvement. It helps quite a bit also to actually have, now that we have in-house counsel, somebody's there, we can constantly keep things moving as opposed to outside counsel having to come in and out. She did a great job, but it was difficult. So so far so good. You'd have to ask somebody else how we're doing.
So I need to ask the question, where are we with the updates on our policies?
Good question.
Oh, we had, would you like to address that, Superintendent? Okay. We've, where we are with those updates is that Neola is currently, they had the updates that we looked at, we reviewed, and this has been many, many months ago.
2 years.
Right. Then there was a series of updates also. Neola only updates the actual legal thing. So if there's an update, then it's an update that's in keeping with the law. So we have to either adopt it or toss it. With Neola, those policies that we've got, that's, as far as from our department's concerned, it's a matter now of we've got to pick out which ones we want to go forward with and which ones we want to revamp. We have a couple of options, and I met with the superintendent yesterday so we could discuss this, and also with to discuss where we are with each of these board policies. Now, the policies that we have currently, some are quite outdated. We talked about, for example, the drone policy that was brought up. Some are new. Some are, like the drone policy actually isn't an outdated example. It's an example of one that's new that is not working for us. Neola policies, with each of the batches that they have there, we have two essential options. One option would be to adopt wholesale all of their policies so that we have those policies there in place, and then we start selecting and improving the ones that we identified target. Unfortunately, in some of those cases, there are, especially with finance, for example, there are a number of policies that we have to choose one or the other. So I believe the direction as of now is to be trying to work in batches. I think we've got commitment that we're going to be working with staff directly. Staff is going to be bringing concerns to the superintendent as to which policies they believe need change within their department, and we will start adopting Neola standards in batches. So as we go through, if there's a Neola standard that we want to accept because it's basically a good policy and it's what we need, then that's what we'll do. And if those policies are ones that need alteration, then those alterations will be things that we roundtable discuss and move forward with.
Okay. So if there's a plan in place, which you said there is, and you're going to work in batches, I think we can all come to consensus that we want to move forward with that, because it's just been too long. And we have some policies that haven't been looked at
In almost 20 years.
in 20 years. So it's actually embarrassing, if you want to know the truth. So we have got to bring everything up to date.
She's right. One of the last things I did meet with Attorney Powers and Superintendent. There were some policies that because of auditing, has to take priority. It has to be done
Absolutely.
within certain, I think we said, within the next 100 days, we need to get those. So I think the charge to the superintendent and to Mr. Powers was to go ahead to handle those priority ones first, so that we can be in compliance with auditing for auditing purposes, but then to bring the rest to the board in batches, because there are so many that we were out of, we haven't looked at, like you said, 2 years or more, that we've been kind of waiting on Neola for these things.
Well, and Neola wanted to get together with us and have essentially a multi-day workshop where we went over.
That's what we thought we were
Did that
going to
already.
do.
Did.
Right, they wanted to do this again because there's been a number of updates that have had to happen because of law changes.
Do they still want to have that?
And
Is that a-
I don't think we can because of the fact that we aren't choosing to go over and adopt this entire
All
set
theirs.
at once. We need to
Prioritize.
push through and prioritize the ones that we need done first.
Get it
Gotcha.
moving.
We talked about the fact that there are essentially two types of policies. The ones that are relatively standardized, that there's no reason to deviate from. If we identify and target which ones those are, that's great. We have one big batch. Then there are ones that require from each individual department to give feedback as to which of the policies they choose and why it may or may not work for them. Just because another county or another district is doing it that way and has adopted a policy in a particular way does not mean that we automatically should or could. So when the departments have identified which of those policies they wish to alter, then those alterations can be submitted to Neola and we can submit those to the board for approval. So.
Well, we understand that. I know what you just said, and I heard this 2 years ago, and I think that's what you're hearing. I think you're hearing a board that's frustrated that we've been hearing this for a couple of years, and there hasn't been any
We haven't
action.
seen
And we're
anything. We've
told
seen nothing.
this, but there hasn't been anything. So everything you said makes complete sense, but it's what we've been hearing. And so,
So what is the timeline for beginning to get policies to us?
Well, our department doesn't get the policies to you. The staff needs to bring the policies to the board, and then I can work from there as to how what we need to tweak. I mean,
Right,
those aren't
right.
policies
You
And
that,
I do
specifically,
think that
but-
was part of the holdup. To be very honest with you, I think staff was told, don't do it.
Correct.
Okay.
And
Well,
so now,
Correct.
we have a superintendent that understands that it needs to be a priority. And so if staff is looking at it,
Yes, so members of the board, so for clarification, yes. So in addition to what Attorney Powers shared, our team, my team, cabinet had discussed this thoroughly a number of occasions. We stood and are ready to move these through in batches. Weekly, we have already a system in place, and we're waiting for Attorney Powers to come on board. A number of the policies that we discussed in detail some are more than 20 years old. And so we know from the operations side, there's a lot of frustration echoed here by the board, and they were being held up because they were updated and they didn't move forward. And so we're thankful that Attorney Powers is on board, that we can get these vetted to make sure now we can move these forward. So I anticipate now we can be bringing them through in batches in priority order.
I'll be a bulldog about this.
when do you anticipate the first batch coming before us? Do we have it?
Some within the next 100 days because of
Yes.
auditing. You're going to have some within the next 100 days.
Correct.
They have to.
Well, it'll be before 100
Very
days.
soon.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
so as they come from staff, we will, superintendent will review them. I'll look at them to make sure they're correct for legal form and what is needed, if there's any change or note suggestions for improvement, and then we can submit them to the board, and you guys can discuss as a batch. It's going to require probably multiple work sessions, but
We're used to that.
okay. We need to, and
Whatever it takes.
We're ready.
right. With each batch, there will be things that there will be a decision that staff sort of makes a decision as to which of the model policies to adopt, excuse me. Then, if there are changes or alterations that staff wishes to make to those policies, I'll vet them to make sure that they are legally accurate. I will also make any notations about potential things you may want to consider and submit them for our work sessions, and then we can start knocking them out in groups.
And what I did ask them, board members, is that if there are all policies that we all are, go through work session that we're in consensus on, that we just go ahead, once we get consensus, add them to a consent agenda so we can get them through a little bit faster.
This board stands ready to help you expedite.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Was there anything else?
No, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Just brief updates. I do not yet have dates to bring to you for the board retreat, but I anticipate getting those shortly. And I just want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you, board members, for your leadership and support, and to our wonderful employees and our students. And a reminder to all as we enter into holiday season to please take great care with social distancing. My biggest fear is post-December, after holiday season. We want to maintain and be grateful for our students being in school. So I just ask for everyone to just take great care. We can continue.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, Ms. King.
Yesterday, everyone kind of scattered and left in a hurry, but I wanted to personally thank you, Mr. Cummings, for chairing last year. You led our board with wisdom and grace and kindness. And I just wanted to personally thank you for that. And I also want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. I echo what Dr. Gullett said. Please take care of yourselves and your families so that we can all stay healthy. That's all I had this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank this whole board. Ms. Stacy's not here, but I truly enjoyed serving, and I appreciate the help that I got from each and every one of our board members. And I'm looking forward to what we're going to do in the next days ahead. We do have a lot of challenging things still before us. We heard some of it this morning with Evergreen and Oakcrest, and we're going to work hard. I have to say this to our staff. After last week, there were some things that people thought that we did not do not support. Our teachers, we truly know that education would not be education without teachers, and we value everything that they do. And I believe that this board is a board that's going to fight hard to try to equal out those things that are wrong, that are not right, and I'm committed to that task. The holidays is upon us. I just don't want people to get complacent, thinking that everything is all right. I know we keep hearing about vaccines and stuff, but they're not here yet, and people are still dying. I'm actually sitting here monitoring my phone because I got some folk that's being moved to hospice today and folk that have died this week. So we need to take this thing seriously. Enjoy your family. Do it differently this year. You can't have 20, 30 people over to the house, and it just has to be different. And I want us to be around for next year. So please, parents, please, everybody, just be smart about this thing, and let's have a safe holiday. Let's be thankful that we're here and that others are still here, but let's be able to come back. So, and again, thanks to all our board members. Welcome, Ms. Campbell, to the board.
Thank you. Ms. McCall.
First of all, welcome, Ms. Campbell. And second of all, last night unanimously at City Council, Mike Vulcan was appointed Chief of Police. So I want to congratulate him, and the school board looks forward to working with you. And now I'm going to be very candid and very honest. Yesterday I was incredibly angry and incredibly disappointed, and I lost my temper. I should have walked out of the room because that was totally uncharacteristic of me. But to twice have thought that it was my turn to be the vice chair and then not to be selected is very hurtful. And I hope that none of you ever have to sit in that seat and have those feelings. So I have a recommendation, and I don't need any comments, about this, but I have a recommendation that we go back to choosing the chair and the vice chair like we used to, and exactly like City Council does it, and exactly like County Commission does it, and rotate every member through so that everybody sitting in these seats are leaders. Everybody sitting in these seats should have the opportunity to serve in the leadership of this board. And I believe very strongly that City Council and County Commission do it for two reasons. Number one, it's fair and equitable, and everybody deserves the opportunity to share in that chairmanship on a rotation basis. And number two, because it takes all the politics out of it. And to be overlooked, and I hope you're never in that seat, whether it's me or somebody else, but to continue to be overlooked can bring a very large wedge into a board working well together. Now, saying that, yesterday was yesterday, and I'm fine with the decision that was made. But I'm encouraging you to go forward, to do this fairly, to rotate it so everybody has the opportunity to serve, to not make it political, and so that wedge will not have the tendency to be there. And I know that's why the County Commission and City Council do it that way. So it's not political. So everybody gets a shake and everybody can work together. We went through master board training. We know how to work together as a board. I will continue to collaborate with this board, but I do think it's the right way to move board members through leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCall, and appreciate your candid input. And I can speak on behalf of all of us. We all value you as a board member, and we've all been through so much together. So we will continue to move forward. And thank you for everything that you do.
And your leadership.
Well, that's not why I had these comments. I want us to really consider
Correct.
how we choose the chair and the vice chair and what is equitable and fair for everybody, because all five of us
Correct.
have leadership skills, and we should all five, and no one board member should continue to be in leadership. It should rotate on a fair basis.
Understand. Ms. Campbell.
Thank you, first of all, for welcoming me. Yesterday was a wonderful day for my family and for just in general. It was just a great day for us. So thank you very much for that. Thank you for the warm welcome. I, too, want to express happy Thanksgiving to everyone, and do practice safe social distancing and all of those wonderful things. Be as safe as possible, and all the parents are going to be working on science projects like we will be in our home. I feel you. I know where you are. So I just want you to have a wonderful time with your family and get some of those things done. While Ms. McCall has brought up a decision last evening at City Council, I would be remiss if I didn't also as well. Last evening, on a vote 4-1, the City Council also did award the permit to the Ocala Christmas Parade. I have, as I expressed yesterday, spent time in each of the 10 schools in District 1 over the last week. And that decision, that with the school board not participating in any capacity, has caused some confusion among our principals as well as our parents. And personally, I was obviously not a part of that conversation or decision. I would like to ask if there was consensus of the board for us to potentially consider an emergency session to revisit that conversation now that we know, in fact, that the Christmas parade is going on, and perhaps to have additional input from those principals and others that this directly impacted where we did not hear from them in the past.
Board?
May I, from legal, I can indicate that any member of the board can ask for the board to collectively vote to call for an emergency session. Would need to be advertised within 24 hours. So we could cut short the length of time that it would take. But any reconsideration of a prior motion would have to be made under Robert's Rules of Order, Section 37.
Board meeting.
It would have to be made by one of the members that was on the prevailing side of that vote in order to actually reconsider it. However, the emergency session to discuss it and to allow further input is something that you can certainly choose to do. And you can choose to do that at a work session should the board decide that that's what they wish.
Madam Chair, I'm comfortable with my decision.
I'm comfortable with my decision.
All right.
That sounds like that's what it is.
Pardon?
That sounds like what it is.
That's 2.
Yeah, it's 4.
Okay.
That's 4.
And that's fine?
I think, and I did get that message too last night that we did need to reconsider it. And I think what you're asking is fair to ask. I just don't, I'm thinking none of us are seeing anything has changed since last week's decision. That would, other than, we actually asked in that meeting to wait till today to make a decision, and we were told that we had to make a decision that day. And that's kind of why we went that way and made the decision. We asked that group to wait till after the city council met. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
And they said that we had to make a decision that day, so.
Thank you for bringing this up again, Board Member Campbell. It is important to know that we anticipated that the City Council was going to vote that way. I continue to feel very sorry about all of our situation, with COVID-19. I think it's very important to remember what our mission is, and our mission is to educate students and to mitigate as much risk as possible while providing opportunities. We are continuing to have to close classrooms. We are not COVID-19 free. Every time a student misses instruction or has to shift to MCPS online, that creates an educational disruption, which is a disruption of our mission. And truly, bottom line, Marion County Public Schools has been an ardent supporter of the Ocala Christmas Parade for over a half a century. And frankly, it would have been very helpful to have been approached by the parade committee this year to more or less be let off the hook, to say, hey, we recognize what you're trying to do. We are one of the few states in the country that are offering a 5-day in-person option for our kids. And to me personally, that's what's most important. And the Christmas parade is fantastic. I hope that and I expect that our district will get to the quality of education that is the same as the Christmas parade provides. It's that good, and we want to be that good. And those are the reasons why I'm comfortable with the decision. We've put hundreds of details into place to try to continue to provide opportunities for our kids, especially if it leads to more academic opportunities. And that truly needs to be recognized. And we continue to need everyone in the community's help to prioritize public education for our kids in the midst of COVID-19. So those are my thoughts.
And I struggled with that one. I think I shared that with you guys. I shared with you guys that I'm dealing with this personally as well. But then when I look back through my texts, just this week we've had about 40 people in the district affected by either positive or direct contacts in the district. And I'm not, when I say this week, it's just the 3rd day of the week. And we got to seriously continue to mitigate what we can do. I'm just not comfortable with it.
And also too, I feel like by making this decision, as tough as it is, we did the Christmas parade committee a favor, because now there's going to be much more ability for social distancing. There's going to be quite a few less participants. I imagine they're continuing to go forward because they still feel like they're going to be able to put on a really high-quality parade and give the community members that want to attend a little bit of a Christmas cheer and holiday boost. And hopefully that will go just that way for them. I wish them well, and we'll see you next year.
Thank you for your consideration, Board. I did want to bring it up because I was not a part of that conversation, and it is something that is immediate and it is going to be impacting this community prior to our next meeting, and so I did want to bring that up. In the conversations I had with principals, there has been some confusion among parents. There have been some confusion among principals as well. The confusion is basically that the students are social distancing in schools and they are wearing their masks. And from the perspective of a spectator of the parade for many years, I understand exactly how distanced those bands have been when they're standing 5 and 6 across the road. And if they were distanced away from the crowd that way, how much more could they be if they were marching 3 deep or even further? Nevertheless, I appreciate the decision.
So it's not actually the parade itself, it's the gathering point.
I understand that. I've also been a parade judge, so I understand what the gathering point looks like too. So nevertheless, the decision has been made. I'm not going to belabor the point. I am looking forward today to, I believe, participating as the school board member chosen to be a part of the DOH update. So I'm interested to hear the COVID update, as I have not been able to be a part of those. In the conversations also that I have had with principals, I am very pleased, and I did want this known to the public. I'm very pleased, with the exception of only one school of the 10 in District 1 that I've spoken with, that while we have had a positive case here or there, when we have then quarantined the students that have been direct contacts, we have not had transmission within those classrooms. And so I think that's important. I don't think that's something I've heard actually spoken in public about that. So be assured that the school district has very safe protocols in place, that if you have concerns about bringing your child back to school, that we don't have, at least in the schools that I have spoken to directly, student-to-student transmission where it has been a safe distancing in the classroom. Now, maybe a boyfriend and girlfriend transmission, that's a little bit different, but from the students that I have, or the schools I have spoken with and the principals I've spoken with, I feel very confident that the school district has gone to great lengths to ensure that our students are safe, that they are practicing hand washing and hand sanitizing, and that they're spraying down everything as often as they can. They're not sharing PE equipment. They're wearing their face coverings and all of those things that are keeping our kids safe. And I'm very pleased that my kids are a part of that too. So that's all. Thank you.
Especially as a parent, that's got to be
Absolutely.
very reassuring to know all that. And that's exactly our intent, is to continue to do everything that we can to keep kids in school 5 days a week, and to reassure the parents that have been hesitant to come on and send their kids back. Dr. Gullett, did you have anything else?
No, and I want to thank you, Board Member Campbell, for bringing that up. We are going to continue to take great care in each and every case, and I know sometimes we get questions from staff. We're going to continue to communicate and work very closely with the Department of Health.
And please clear, like you said, there may be some people that still have some confusion. I hope they would contact the superintendent if they have any confusion about, I don't know why there's confusion, but.
If school groups cannot participate.
Right. I mean, I know I got an email about a truck or something, and I think I forwarded that to you all for clarity on that. But I mean, if the schools are actually having confusion or issues about it, they just need to contact the superintendent for clarity.
And this, our policy, or not our policy, but our decision to not have students involved as a district sanctioned activity does not preclude anyone. I mean, this is a free country. Anyone that wants to put an application in and march in the Christmas parade is perfectly welcome, to do that. And so that also needs to be clarified. Our job is to do what's best for our kids and to minimize risk and maximize educational opportunity. So tough decision, but that's what we're going with. Okay, we have a shade request from Mr. Leppert, and we're looking at January 7th of 2021 for IUPAT negotiations. Would you like to come up, or is there anything else you need to add?
It's just a request for executive session prior to negotiation.
January 7th?
January 7th. Oops.
We have a work session that day?
Yes, it'll be right after the work
Okay.
session.
So right after the work session.
Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. You got it. Thank you.
So
All right.
Elena, can I ask, have you all sent out the 2021 yet?
We're in the process.
Okay,
right now.
thank you.
Everyone's, we're going to working on that. We should
Okay.
have it complete by Thanksgiving week. We will be here.
Thank you.
We will be working on it.
And question, we do have the FSBA virtual conference coming, Zoom conference.
Beginning on December 2nd.
Right.
So you should be receiving information about that.
Link to it. Ms. Campbell, you're all set for that as well?
Mhm. Yes, I received it yesterday. Thank you.
You'll enjoy that, yeah. Okay, and then further, Ms. Campbell, welcome. Glad to have you on board. And yes, everyone, please do your part for Thanksgiving to enjoy and eat some good food. Take good care of yourselves and each other. We want you, back at school, hale, hearty, and healthy, and enjoy your break. And I think that's all I have for today. So, all right. Meeting is adjourned at 10:27 a.m.